Thread the line through the eye and wrap it around itself 6 times. Then pass it back through the loop and pull tight. Now, for a human-sized fish, you would only need a stainless steel hook about 1 inch wide. But for a great white shark, over 2,400 pounds, the hook would have to be around 10 inches of solid steel. And pulling it up would take a machine strong enough to lift a car. Now, if you wanted to catch a megalodon, your hook would be 3 feet tall and 7 inches thick. And you would need a bluefin tuna on the hook as bait. But it would require arm and back muscles at least 10 times wider just to pull it in. The dragon flew above Disney World and a pilot sat inside. Special controls allowed him to move the head, flap the wings, and swing the tail. A giant fan attached to its back pushed it forward, while a paraglider held it up in the sky. Powerful spotlights focused only on the dragon, but the dark glider was hidden against the night sky. And this made it look like a real flying dragon. A hidden cannon even let it spit fire. But after flying over the grand opening, it was put in storage and never seen again. They watched as the plane's engines cut out one by one until all 4 were dead, leaving it gliding silently at 37,000 feet. You see, a cloud of volcanic ash had been blown high into the sky from an eruption, and since it wasn't a normal cloud, it didn't show up on the plane's radar. When it entered the engines, the heat melted it into glass. That glass clogged the turbines and shut down all 4 engines. Meaning for 15 minutes, the pilot could only glide as the plane dropped thousands of feet, with everyone on board believing they were going to die. But as the plane dropped lower, it finally left the cloud, and the glass began to break off the engines, allowing the pilots to restart all 4. The plane landed safely, saving every life on board. Inside the bean, a larva smacks its head against the hollow shell, causing it to twitch and jump. Now, they do this when the beans are placed in the hot sun. You see, without movement, the heat could actually cook them alive. But by banging their heads, the larva cause the beans to jerk and roll, eventually bouncing out of the sunlight to escape the heat. They can keep doing this for months as needed, until they finally transform into a moth and crawl out of the shell. Santa's sleigh would need to be larger than the Great Pyramid to hold all of the world's presents. You see, there are about 1 billion kids on Earth, and if each one gets around 3 gifts, and each gift weighs about 1 pound, there would be 3 billion pounds of presents in total. His 9 reindeer wouldn't stand a chance with this thing, meaning he would need over 7 million, and they would have to fly millions of miles per hour just to meet the deadline. That speed would make the reindeer, Santa, and all the presents vaporize. She would slide into the chair's hollow frame and hidden panels, folding her body tight inside. The magician wheels it out on stage, showing how normal the chair is from all angles. Then he throws the cloth over it and shakes it, letting the woman quickly open the chair and climb out. And just as she gets into position, the magician whips away the cloth, creating the illusion that she appeared from nowhere. Slip the nail inside the claw and wedge it in tight. Then line it up to the right place and give it one sharp hit. This will force the nail to stick in the wood. Now, if you just hold the nail in place, you could easily slip and hit your thumb, which can cause serious injuries. But using the claw method means your fingers are nowhere near the nail, and once it's stuck in the wood, you can hammer it the rest of the way. He would look at the guard's key and instantly memorize the pattern. Then he would file a piece of scrap metal into the exact same shape and let himself out of prison. You see, as an autistic child, he had a special talent for mechanics, and when his father died, he left his tools to him. But his stepmother called the police, since the will hadn't been read yet. He was sentenced to 4 years, but after just a month, he climbed over the razor wire fence and ran. Now this added more time to his sentence, as well as solitary confinement. But once he was back in his cell, he used a makeshift saw to cut through the bars. Another time, he made a zip gun from a tube of toothpaste, pointing it at the prison guards as he ran. And after 13 escape attempts, his sentence stretched to 34 years, with 27 of those spent in solitary confinement. And even though people have protested, he's still in prison to this day. They pulled a live eel out of the man's belly. You see, the man had come in complaining of severe pain, and when doctors pushed on his abdomen, it was rock hard. When they stuck a camera inside, they saw the eel, and it was moving. Now, some say this was part of some strange folk cure, but he never said how it actually got in there. His friend shot an arrow at the gas canister on his head. You see, he had just joined a men's rafting group, and this was part of his initiation. But they were both drunk, and the arrow missed the can, hitting him instead. As it shot through his skull, it somehow missed all major blood vessels before coming out the back. And the man stayed conscious the entire time. Doctors treated him by drilling around the arrowhead and pulling the rest through. And even though he lost his eye, he survived without any brain damage. The animal is skinned and the hide is scraped clean. Next, tree bark is soaked in water until it turns dark. Then the hide is dropped in. The natural acids from the bark slowly bind to the skin, which stops it from decomposing. Over the next few weeks, the hide is moved through stronger solutions, and each new solution binds more acids to the proteins in the skin, which toughens the fibers. At the same time, it dyes the skin, making it darker. And when it's done, the leather is strong, durable, and resistant to rot. They hid the poison inside a fake perfume bottle and put it on his door handle to kill him on contact. But the man was quickly taken to the hospital before the poison killed him. So they tossed the bottle into the trash. But months later, a man found it in a donation bin and gave the bottle to his partner. She sprayed it on her wrists and the poison seeped into her skin, eventually shutting down her organs and killing her 8 days later. They caught the shark and tied the line to the back of the boat. And as it began to swim, their boat actually started to move. You see, they had been lost at sea for weeks after their GPS failed. They drank salt water, ate raw fish, and fought to stay alive. And when they finally caught the shark, they rigged it up like an engine. And for 3 days, it dragged their boat across the ocean until it finally died. But in the distance, they saw an island. And after 33 days lost at sea, they finally reached land. They loaded thousands of Christmas trees and set sail, even though a dangerous storm was coming. You see, he was known as Captain Santa, and he would set sail across the lake to deliver Christmas trees to waiting families. But this time, snow started falling, and the waves rocked the ship. The captain began to panic, raising a distress flag. A rescue boat was launched, but the trees were too heavy, and the ship sank before anyone could arrive. Captain Santa drowned, along with 9 other crew members. Christmas trees washed ashore for weeks after, and to this day, the Christmas trees still lay at the bottom of Lake Michigan. The enemy bullet sliced right through his chin strap, knocking the helmet off his head. They were trapped in trenches just a few hundred feet apart, fighting each other for weeks on end. He had stopped thinking of them as men. They were just targets in the dark. But one day, for some reason, the gunfire stopped. For the first time in weeks, everything was still. In the quiet, he remembered what day it was, Christmas Eve. He lifted a lantern above the trench and began to sing a Christmas song. Stille Nacht, heilige Nacht. From across the field, another voice joined in. Then more. Enemy voices on both sides, all singing along. He stood up climbed out of the trench, and stepped into the battlefield. Slowly, soldiers from both sides started to follow. They met in the middle, shaking hands on the ground right where their fellow soldiers had previously died. Some started sharing chocolate and showing photos of their families. They played football, traded souvenirs, and told each other stories. They even posed for photos together, because for once, they finally saw each other not as enemies, but as fellow men. When dawn broke, the lanterns burned out and orders came down the line. The Christmas truce was over. He returned to his trench, gripping the same rifle, and across the field, the men he had sung with the night before raised their guns too. His plane was shot, and plastic shards from the windshield tore into his eyes. Now, at the hospital, the surgeon noticed something strange. You see, injuries like these usually cause swelling as your body tries to get rid of the foreign objects. But the plastic pieces didn't activate his immune system, meaning they could stay in his body for a long time without any harm. Now he figured if he could put this kind of plastic in someone's eyes, he could replace their damaged lens, curing their blindness. And he eventually invented the first permanent contacts. Now millions of people can see again, all thanks to one pilot's injury. If you hold a balloon over a candle, the flame will weaken the rubber and it'll pop instantly. But if you fill the balloon with water and lower it over the flame, the heat goes into the water instead of staying in the rubber. Then the water spreads the heat out before it can build up in one spot, acting like a shield around the rubber. This means the rubber never gets hot enough to melt, so the water-filled balloon does not pop. He pressed the controls super fast and beat the same game for the 100th time. Now, he really wanted the new game, but it was just way too expensive. He got a text from his girlfriend, Mary. "Let's not do gifts this year and just save our money instead. Sound good?" He glanced at her camera on the shelf. It had slipped from her hands weeks ago, causing a crack in the lens. And every photo she took since had a line running right through the middle. He really wanted to get her a new lens for Christmas, which means he needed extra cash. First, he walked dogs around the city. Then, he went around the neighborhood, shoveling snow. He delivered food throughout the night, even skipping meals just to save every dollar. But by Christmas Eve, he still didn't have enough. He looked down at his game console, his favorite thing, and knew what he had to do. He biked through the snow and sold it for just enough to buy Mary the new lens. On Christmas morning, he handed her a small box wrapped in newspaper. She teared up as she lifted it out of the box. Then she smiled and handed him a box of her own. Inside was the new game. The one that he had wanted all year. He was confused. How could she afford this? And that's when he noticed the empty space on the shelf where her camera used to sit. She had sold it, just like he sold his game console. And even though they couldn't use their gifts, they both ended up with something better. He got into the shell, and the dome was locked in place. As he turned the head, R2-D2 did the same, but turning too far choked him with wires, so he had to be careful with his movements. They swapped in a smaller remote-controlled robot for scenes where R2 rolled in the swamps, while puppeteers used hidden wires to yank it around for complicated scenes, creating the illusion of a robot that's alive. They would yank the blood-sucking creature off the fish, then stab its brain before squeezing out its blood. The blood would be boiled with red wine to make a sauce, while the rest of the lamprey was baked. It was then served to royalty, covered in the blood sauce. And this dish was eaten on Christmas Eve, when Christians weren't allowed to eat meat. You see, lamprey is fatty and meaty, even though it's technically a fish, making it a perfect loophole for rich people who wanted to eat meat when they shouldn't. Alexander the Great's body was sealed inside the tomb, but he may have still been alive. You see, he should have decomposed, but as his body sat for 6 days before the funeral, some say it stayed perfectly preserved. Now, at the time, people thought this meant he was a god, but today, some scientists think he became totally paralyzed before they pronounced him dead, meaning he might not have been dead at all. Instead, he could have suffocated in his tomb, or been cut open and had his organs removed as they embalmed him. A wire is carefully looped around the flea's tiny body using tweezers. Then the harness is tied to a cart, and every time the flea moves, the toy goes with it. On stage, the crowd would watch wagons roll and wheels spin, as if the fleas are trained performers. Now, some circuses would use glue to stick small instruments on the fleas. Then they would heat them up, causing them to squirm around to try and escape, which made it look like they were playing the instruments. As the soda went into the cup, it flowed through a funnel and into a plastic tube that ran down his sleeve, and it drained into a secret reservoir in his bag. You see, Baja Blast was only sold in Taco Bells, so he came up with a plan and posted it online. And that's when other users jumped in to help. They offered tweaks and improvements to the device until they had perfected the design together. He cut a hole in the bottom of the cup and used the tubing to connect it to the sealed container. While the empty cup looked normal from the outside, with a few refills, he stole gallons of soda without anyone noticing. Then he posted the video online, where it spread across the internet as Operation Soda Steal. If you pour water into a hammer mold, freeze it, peel it out, and then try to hit a nail, it will shatter right away. Instead, use a mallet mold to spread the weight more evenly. Next, tear up a paper towel to spread on the bottom. This makes a mesh that holds the ice layers together. After that, stuff in cotton balls, which helps give the ice a sturdy structure, and lay 2 strings down the length of the hammer to keep the handle connected to the head. Finally, if you top it off with 1 more layer of paper towels before pouring in the water, you'll end up with a sturdy hammer that can crush a jawbreaker. They pulled the painting off the wall and found a hidden room. But what they saw inside horrified them. You see, weeks earlier, a man tried calling his brother, and when a complete stranger picked up the phone, he immediately knew something was wrong. His neighbor also saw people going into the house with cleaning supplies, so he called the police. They went in, finding multiple homeless men living in his house, before uncovering the secret room with a single fish tank. Inside was the man's body, without his head or his hands. The police arrested 2 of the homeless men, but they were later released, and to this day, no one knows what actually happened. They attached the wires to the ferret before sending it running through a pipe, carrying a trail of cables behind it. You see, they wanted to host the concert at the Royal Park, but the pipes underneath were too long to push the cables through with rods, and they weren't allowed to dig up the ground, so they just brought in some ferrets. You see, ferrets naturally hunt in underground tunnels, so they used meat to guide them as they threaded the wires throughout the park, just in time to save the New Year's Eve concert. They stuffed the rifle in between sandbags and tied 2 tins to the top and bottom, connecting the trigger to the lower one. Then they filled the top can with water before poking holes in it. And as the water dripped down, it slowly filled the bottom tin. The growing weight pulled on the rope, building tension until it finally yanked the trigger. This fired the gun while the sandbag kept it in place. You see, the soldiers used this to trick the enemy into thinking the battle was still going on as they quietly slipped away. The shopping mall rose on every side of her small house, leaving it surrounded by concrete walls and cranes. You see, developers had offered her $1 million to sell her house so they could build the mall, but she refused, saying she wouldn't move for any price. so they just built it around her. Soon her house became famous, and fans tattooed it on their skin as a symbol of determination. Now, the project manager stopped by often to check on construction, then just to check on her. They became friends. He brought her groceries and listened to her stories. She told him about spying on Nazis and even meeting Hitler himself. Now, no one knows how much of it was true, but he said her spirit was. And when she finally passed away, she left the house to him. She dove off the dock, but a broken cord from a nearby boat leaked electricity into the water. It rushed into her and froze her body mid-swim, slowly killing her as she sank into the ocean. You see, bad wiring on boats spreads electrical currents in the water like an invisible net, and even the tiniest shock could paralyze your muscles and body, which would quickly make you drown. So even if it looks safe, you should never swim near a docked boat. He fled from police after shoplifting and hid in a stranger's house, where a 9-year-old boy was home alone. The man started searching for car keys while the boy escaped, but police soon surrounded the house. And over the next 19 hours, a SWAT team launched grenades, fired gas rounds, and drove an armored truck through the doors. Finally, the suspect was arrested, but when the family returned, they found the house completely destroyed. The city refused to pay for the damage, and even though they sued, the judge said they deserved nothing. They shove the tube down its throat, then pump it full of food. And they do this 3 times a day, forcing up to a pound of food down its throat each time. Now, this is done to quickly fatten the duck's liver before killing them and cooking the organ. But the tube can choke them until they suffocate, or even rip holes in their food pipe. And since it's way too much food, they struggle to walk, which is why this practice is now illegal in some countries. The wild pigs all gather around the bait that is sitting beneath a huge metal ring hanging in the air. It's fitted with a live camera that sends an alert to the farmer's phone. And once he makes sure all the boars are inside the trap, he presses the button and the ring drops, snapping into a full circle around the entire herd. You see, in traditional traps, one boar bumps into a tripwire, then the gate slams shut, trapping only the few that made it inside, while the rest escape into the woods. And those survivors teach the others to avoid that trap forever, meaning most of the herd keeps growing faster than they can be stopped. This device fixes that by waiting until every pig is inside before the trap is triggered. He found a shoe on the beach, picked it up, and realized there was a rotting foot still inside. And soon, dozens of other feet started appearing on the beach. Now, people thought it was a serial killer with some weird obsession, or a plane crash that somehow chopped off a bunch of feet. Others even thought it was the work of aliens. But when they tested the DNA, they linked it to people who had reportedly drowned. You see, bodies sink as they decompose, but the soles on sneakers float in water. So when the body breaks down and the feet detach from the ankles, the shoe floats them up before they wash up on the beaches. If you went blind, your brain would stop taking in signals from your eyes. But in rare cases, your brain could just make up images instead. You might think you're pouring into a glass while spilling it across the table, or step forward on what looks like solid ground only to fall down a flight of stairs. You see, the brain is putting in fake images to fill in the lost connection. Now, no one really knows why it does this, and while the condition is rare, it can be extremely dangerous. He got in and the barrel fell from 180 feet as the crowd watched. You see, the year before, he had performed a similar stunt over Niagara Falls and survived. So he set up a pool inside a massive stadium, fully convinced he could cheat death again. But as he landed, the barrel hit the side of the pool, and the impact crushed his chest, belly, and fractured his skull. Assistants had to cut him out before medics could reach him, but his injuries were too severe, and he died later that night. If you only had one battery left, and needed to turn on a flashlight. You could tear off a strip of foil, fold it until it's the same size as the battery, and roll it with your fingers until it's round. Then place the working battery at the positive end of the flashlight with the foil roll at the negative end. You see, electricity needs to have a continuous path in order to work. So when you close the battery compartment and press the switch, the foil completes the circuit, letting the electricity flow from the battery to the light bulb and turning your flashlight back on. The bones are carefully removed from the chicken, which is then seasoned and stacked on a duck. Then the duck is rolled up and placed on top of the turkey, and any extra spaces are filled with stuffing. Next, the edges of the turkey are sewn shut, while tightly wrapped strings hold the meat together. It's roasted for several hours at a low temperature to cook evenly, and as it heats up, the fat melts and the flavors combine. Finally, the turducken is carved, revealing the layers of meat inside. His stomach grew into a potbelly over time, so he exercised regularly and didn't drink beer to try and get rid of it. But even after losing 34 pounds, it was still there. Doctors told him it was nothing, but he demanded a full-body scan, and they found a 30-pound tumor wrapped around his kidney. It took 6 hours of surgery to remove it, along with the kidney, but he fully recovered. When you crack your knuckle, the space in between the joint stretches, and this drops the pressure, forming gas bubbles that suddenly pop and make that satisfying crack sound. But the bubbles take about 30 minutes to come back, which is why it's impossible to crack the same knuckle twice in a row. And if you use too much force, you might just press on the wrong spot and dislocate your finger. How fast would an unbreakable merry-go-round need to spin to liquefy your brain? Well, a normal person can push one at around 9 miles per hour, fast enough to make you dizzy, but not deadly. To reach deadly speeds, you would need to attach a jet engine to the side. You would then have to strap yourself in to keep from flying off. It would spin fast enough to generate over 50,000 Gs of force. That's enough to rupture blood vessels and snap bones. Your brain would slam into the side of your skull over and over until the tissue tears apart from the inside and eventually becomes fully liquefied. If you slide your cup side to side fast, you can catch just the syrup, making your drink taste super sweet. You see, when you push the button, gas pressure turns on behind the wall, and a pump sucks syrup from a sealed bag inside a cardboard box, causing it to slowly move through a plastic tube toward the nozzle. At the same time, cold water flows into a metal tank, and carbon dioxide is forced in under pressure, trapping tiny bubbles inside the water. Then, in separate tubes, the syrup and carbonated water flow into the nozzle. Inside, the fizzy water sprays through tiny holes, spreading into a mist, and the syrup shoots into that mist as they leave the nozzle. But if you time it just right, you can skip most of the water and catch the syrup before it blends in. If you murder someone and then confess the murder to a priest, they cannot tell anyone, ever. You see, it's called the seal of confession, and breaking it will get you kicked out of the church forever. But what if you confess that you're about to kill the priest's own mother? Well, the priest still has to stay silent. He can't warn her, can't call the police. He can't even sit outside her house to protect her, because any action could reveal what he heard. But what if a priest does break the seal of confession, and then confesses that to another priest? Well, that second priest also can't tell anyone, because now that confession is sealed too. He loaded each of the 24 barrels, added a trail of gunpowder, and aimed it out of the window, waiting to assassinate the king as he passed below. He then lit the gunpowder, which fired all the guns at once. The force blew apart the guns and tore the man's face and hands as the bullets rained down on the villagers, even hitting the king's horse in the neck. But the king was barely scratched on his forehead, and the man was soon captured for his crime. As he drove, the car's AI scanned his face and flashed red, warning him to wake up. He was confused because he wasn't sleeping and tried sitting up straighter to look less tired. But nothing worked until he forced his eyes to open super wide. When he let them go back to normal, the alarm rang again, going off 20 times during the trip. You see, the AI was designed to beep whenever it couldn't see the iris. But the man naturally had heavy eye folds, which are when the eyelid's skin and fat overlap near the nose, forming a smooth flap that covers part of his iris, making the AI think he was sleeping. When you sit to poop, the position actually makes it harder for it to come out. You see, sitting tightens your muscles, which presses on your large intestine, bending it into a kink that jams everything up. But if you use a footstool, your knees rise toward your chest and your muscles relax, mimicking the way our ancestors have squatted to poop for thousands of years. It straightens the kink so your poop slides right out.
Chai, good, very good. এনে তো চা। তোকে এরকম উদ্ভ্রান্তের মতো লাগছে কেন? জি।
সুন্দর।
এই যায়।
থ্যাংক ইউ, থ্যাংক ইউ।
আমাদের শহর কেমন লাগছে?
এখনো বুঝে উঠতে পারিনি।
আমি যেন সেই কাজ করি ভালো মনে।
আমি শুভ, এখানে নতুন এসেছি।
টুম্পা তোর সাথে কথা বলবে।
কেন? আমি বিরক্ত করলে তোমার সমস্যা না? আর 5 জন এসে বিরক্ত করে তাতে
জাফর আমার এক্স হাজবেন্ড।
শেষ পর্যন্ত তোমার বুদ্ধি হলো। যাক, এটা ভালো।
না না
ছিল এইতেছি
তার মানে আপনি কবি না?
জি না, বড় ভাই।
জান
মাইশা, এখন তুমি আমার বাড়ি থেকে বেরিয়ে যাও। যাও বলছি।
আরে বেটা আইবো না জুয়েলের কথা কথা। আরে জুলি গেছে। আরে হাসপাতালের কাজ শেষ কইরা সারা এলাকা। জুলি, তুমি বুঝতাছো না, একটাই দাবি থাকবো যে এক দফা এক দাবি।
কষ্ট আমার বুকটা বাইতে গেছে, আমি অনেক কষ্ট পাইছি ভাই।
কষ্ট কোনো ব্যাপার না।
এই রিকশা,
এই ঘটনা ইতিহাস হয়ে থাকবো যে সেলিম ভাই ভালো। আরে জুলি গেছে বাইরে মনে কর পিক করতে, বুঝছো? মিনিমাম 1700 লাইন কবিতা লাগবো। তুই 700 লিখবি। মানুষ তো মর্ডার, যে কোনো সময় মারা যেতে পারে, মারা গেলেই বাঁচি।
আমার কথার বাইরে কোনো কিছু করবি না। আর ও যদি তোকে পড়ানোর চেষ্টা করে, তুই কোনোভাবে কোন হারামজাদা আমার মায়েরা ডিস্টার্ব করে।
হ্যালো, আপনি শুধু শুধু রাগ করছেন। কই
আপনার মেয়ে যাবে না স্যার?
না, আমার মেয়ে যাবে না, আমি একা যাব। এই সেলিম, তুমি কই যাও?
কবিতা লিখতে হইব, কয় লাইন লাগছস দে, নাহলে কিন্তু আমি তোকে পিটামু দে। তাদের
লাগতে হইব না ভাই, এটা স্যার আপনি যেটা করবেন এটা করবো। কোন খুন খারাপি করে লিখুন, কবিতা লিখতে পারবো না।
কোনো মাপ নাই।
এটা পইরে আপনার প্রেমে পুরো রূপ করে পড়ে যাবো।
আর তোর
আপনি পারবেন ভাই, আপনি পারবেন।
এত কিছু ফালানোর সিস্টেম জানোস, আর প্রেমে ফালানোর সিস্টেম জানোস না? কথা তো একেবারে ফালায় দেওয়ার মতো না। আগে যদি তোরা গুলিও করস, আগে সালামটা তুই আন।
আপনার ছেলেকে আমার এত পছন্দ হয়েছে যে আমি তো বিয়েতে রাজি হয়ে গেছি।
বছরও পড়বো না।
আমি তোমাকে চ্যালেঞ্জ দিলাম, তুমি যদি 7
মাস্তানি মুস্তানি অপরাধ, এই 7 দিন খালি খাবি। আর
এরকম পট্টি দিয়ে রাখছস কেন?
আমি চাই এই মহৎ কাজটার সাথে আপনি থাকেন। আমাদেরকে 100
দুনিয়ার হাসা বাড়া। হ্যাঁ, আরে বেটা, বড় ভাইয়ের মতো একটা বড় ভাই মানে টুকুর।
কিন্তু ছাপাই না, সব মাথার ভিতরে থাকে। যখন পড়তে ইচ্ছা করে মাথা, আমি জানো ওরে বাপ করে দেব। আর আমি কি কমো জানো? তবু তানিয়া ভালো কেমন বেটা, কস না কেন, বেটা
তোমার আমি আসো তুমি গাও দে। আচর করে বুঝতেছ।
গর্জন করলেই সবকিছু অর্জন হয় না, বুঝছস?
তানিয়া শুধু ভাত কেন?